15. The general succession of living beings. 22nd January 1847. These occurrences seem to happen in such a way that someone could believe that they are, in a way, collections of certain whirlwinds, which, however, then united in the air into some kind of ball, and then fell down again when the lifting force of the whirlwind had decreased. But for an only somewhat deeper researcher, this explanation will certainly not be sufficient. For to lift frogs, toads, and snakes, a tremendously strong whirlwind, or even a most violent whirlwind, would be necessary. But if these more loose animal bodies were exposed to such a destructive fury of the winds, then they would firstly be torn into the smallest pieces before they fell to earth again. And with the survivors of such animals, it would have then surely its wise ways. Secondly, such a whirlwind, in order to take fish out of, say, a whole lake or a morass, which often is several hours in length and width, would itself have to have an enormous diameter, and also an expression of force which no mountain could resist, which, however, cannot easily be assumed by a naturalist. And thirdly, such a wind or such a violent whirlwind would surely clean out the water of the lake to the last drop, or even a whole morass in such a way that not only a loose grain of sand would remain. Where then, if it rained down these animals, also water, mud, and a lot of other ingredients would have to fall down, which, however, is usually never the case with these so-called amphibian rains. However, these phenomena develop in the following way. The earth, as a double being in some region, begets out of its bowels a usually innumerable quantity of such eggs. These are very small and are easily driven out through the pores and channels of the earth. They are very small and are easily propelled out through the pores and channels of the earth. The further up they come, the more they are expanded by the nutrients they contain, which in the end makes them lighter than atmospheric air. And then, having reached the surface of the earth, they rise to a certain height in the form of dark mists like balloons, where they enter a strong electric current. And this happens easily because they are properly attracted by it. In this current they are then quickly matured and born, and that not infrequently in a number of many thousands of millions. Because these animals have then formed a properly heavier body from the air through the electric current than the air itself is. They can no longer stay in the air, but sink down to the earth. But because they are nevertheless quite light, not so fast that they would suddenly burst through such a fall, and thus of course would be killed immediately, but they always come down quite safely and can still live for a few hours after falling. And because this formation is a leap over stages, and is not in harmony with the orderly progress of spiritual intelligences out of the earthly body, they soon pass away again from the apparent existence, are absorbed by the earth again, and are driven into the plant kingdom, whereby it is to be noted that such products then pass over into the formerly appearing animal stage earlier than if such animal stages, according to the usual order, must first pass through a whole legion of plant life. For one can say there, animal stages, because they already step into appearance like that from the earth immediately as animal beings, which, however, still have to take a step back into the vegetable before they can assume the intensive animal character. It is completely different with the original plant stages, which already enter the first existence like that. These must go through all plant stages, which stand in their line of progression, before they can be taken up into the animal life. But since there is also an enormous difference between plants and plants, as there are noble and ignoble, good and bad, it also follows that especially the noble ones are so close to the animal stages, and the noblest even to the human stage, that they can soon be included, at least in part, in the human being, and for the most part in the nobler animal kingdom. Of such plants one says, these have a short line of transition, but there are a great number of base plants. With them it takes a very long time until they are absorbed into the nobler ones, and there one says, these have a long line of transition. The same is also the case with the animals. But animals are produced directly from the double being of the earth. So also are seeds for plants produced freely. This happens mainly in the tropical countries, like in the stony Arabia, in some areas of Africa and America. Today, there are still large deserts and steppes. These deserts have certain seed-bearing points for such seeds. There one will also find a luxuriant plant growth all around. But where such seed-bearing sources are lacking, the earth remains desolate and empty. So also, the newly formed islands owe their plant growth to the seeds produced by the earth. And when these have reached a sufficient level of maturity, then also animal stages will begin to develop. However, only up to the still very imperfect crawling animals and insects. The free natural transition does not reach further. Then a higher force must step in order to create a corresponding animal standing on a higher level, into which the preceding levels can pass. And so not seldom upward to man, who, however, is never newly created, but is brought there in due time, by colonization. I think that this description will be sufficient for the inner thinker to see the procreative and reproductive power of the earth as a double being, and how these external phenomena take their origin in the aforementioned way mainly from the kidney of the earth, because in it the general semen is formed and fertilized for further development in the previously described way. With this, however, the actual active essence of the earth's interior is exhausted as completely as possible. And if this communication was about the unveiling of the earth's interior, then this earth's interior is unveiled in all possible brevity as well as possible, and comprehensible to the human mind. Since, however, the complete knowledge of the whole earth would not be served by the sole knowledge of the interior of the earth, we must pass from this interior of the earth, or from the innermost earth, to the second solid earth, and see through it a little, so that the outer earth will then become all the more easily comprehensible and understandable to us. For there is such a great quantity of phenomena on the outer earth, which the most learned explorers can never explain to themselves. All of these phenomena, however, can only be seen quite well and correctly when one knows their basis. Therefore, you must not imagine the solid structure as too simple, but as extremely complicated, and as occupying by far the largest part of the earth. It is, in a way, the solid wood of the tree, which also constitutes the largest mass of the tree. And just as in the solid wood of the tree, the most elaborate mechanism is attached, so this is also the case with the earth. This solid part of the earth is therefore also to be regarded as a school, through which the beings rising from the innermost earth, first formed clumsily, get an actual colouring and shaping. For this reason, this second solid earth must also be explored quite carefully, and we will therefore begin to wander through it a little in the near future.